Hey everyone, welcome to my reader's journal where I recently finished reading We Were Liars by Lockhart. Now, I want you to imagine you are young and rich. Now, for a lot of us, that's going to be hard to imagine, but just use your imagination. You are wealthy and you are young. You are from a wealthy family, a very respected family, and each summer, you and your wealthy family spend your summer vacation on a private island that your family owns. Now, your cousins are there, and each summer you have the best summer of your life, top notch, up until one summer when you wake up in the hospital after an accident that you cannot remember. Now, each time that you try to remember the accident, you get this massive headache, and it's to the point where you can't remember and you're basically left in the dark. You don't know what happened and what caused you to be in the hospital. Now, the summer after that, you don't go back to the island, but then the following summer, you do finally go back, only for you to realize that your family, your rich family, that was always bickering, was always arguing, was now closer and also more broken than ever since that fateful summer that you can't remember. Now, as mentioned, the author of this book is E. Lockhart, and I did not know anything about this woman whatsoever before I read the book, and I finally decided to look her up as regular people do. And I ended up finding out that she also writes books for little kids and also adults. So she's not just segmented to young adults, she does expand her horizons. A couple of things that I also learned from this book that I did not know was the fact that this book won an award from Goodreads and also was nominated for other awards. And more surprisingly, was the fact that this book is going to be made into a TV show on Amazon Prime. Like, I didn't know that. And I'm shocked that I didn't know that because a lot of times I am very aware, well, not very, but a lot of times I'm aware of new TV shows that are coming out, especially if it's a book adaptation. And I had no clue that this was being made. So much that they've already casted the characters. Like, they have a cast. And I'm like, where was I? I didn't know that this was happening, but apparently there's going to be a TV show, so look for that. Now, back to the author, I did learn two things that are kind of connected with the book. First one being that the author is from Massachusetts, which is the same place or the same area that the book takes place. And I also learned that I don't know when and for how long, but she was in private school, according to Wikipedia. And that is also in connection with the fact that the main character and the main family is wealthy. So those were two connections that I was able to make between the author and the book. So this is actually the second time that I've read this book. The first time that I read it was back in 2019, 2021. I don't remember where, but it was in that time frame. And I recall not liking this book at all because it's essentially rich people problems. And I'm not rich. So it's like you have rich people problems and they have their issues and everything, and us people that are not rich have our own problems. So it's like you're arguing over curtains. We're trying to end poverty, we're trying to end racism, and you're arguing about curtains, you're arguing about tablecloths, you're arguing about who gets what house. Like, I couldn't connect with the characters, couldn't connect with the family. Now, when I finished the book the first time around, I did think that the ending was good, but not good enough to like make up for the first two-thirds of the book. So it was very conflicting because again, I liked the ending and I liked the twist that it did, but I didn't like the first two-thirds of the book. Like, I couldn't connect with it. I thought it was boring, and I didn't feel the need to pick it up until now that I'm actually recording my thoughts. I was like, you know what? Let me give this book another shot. So I did. So the second time that I read it, I actually liked it a lot more than the first time. I think that for me, knowing what the ending was, I was actually able to enjoy the story a lot more because now I'm not worried about what was the mystery, like what happened to her. Now I was like, okay, I know what happened. Now let me actually focus on the story that the first two-thirds of the book is trying to tell me. And I found it a lot more interesting because I was able to really pick up on the little hints and the little details that I didn't the first time around that made that first two-thirds of the book more interesting. And when I get to the spoilers, you'll see what I'm talking about. It also made it a lot easier for me to really pay attention to the book when I was going back and forth, like in the timeline, because it goes from present to past, past to present, a lot of the times. And if you know me, like personally, I can get confused very easily. But again, this second time around, I was able to pay attention a lot better and knowing what I know, because if you know, you know. So knowing what I know now that I didn't know before, but knowing what I know now, I was able to really pay attention and keep track of the story. So in general, for me, I didn't like the characters. Now, not to say that I disliked them, but I just didn't like them. So I'm very neutral on them. The only one that I'm very like is the grandfather. And that's because he is an instigator, which did make the story more interesting, that he was instigating a lot of the arguments that the family was having, but he's also racist. So that brought his like character down in my likingness. But everyone else I'm pretty much like because again, I can't connect with them. They're rich, I'm not rich. The protagonist, female, I'm not female. Rich, I'm not rich. White, I'm not white. Having a wealthy family, I don't have a wealthy family. The main protagonist is a white female that is rich from a very wealthy family that spends their summers on a private island, but she is going through a traumatic um, event that she can't remember. I'm not someone that has been through a traumatic event that I cannot remember. Like that's not something that I can connect with. And again, everyone else is just rich people problems, and I can't connect with some. Like maybe the Kardashians can connect with the book, but I can't. Like they're arguing about curtains. Who gets the curtains when the grandfather dies? Who gets the house when grandpa dies? Who gets the tablecloth when grandpa dies? Like they're arguing over these small little things that I'm like, so again, the simple fact that I'm not able to connect with the characters didn't let me like them, but they weren't bad characters, so I don't dislike them. I'm just not able to like them, except for the grandpa. He's Everyone else is just middle. They're like eh. So the first time that I read the book, I think overall the combination of just not being able to connect with the characters, not really having a vision of where the plot was going, and I thought it was boring, and the fact that the book was going back and forth in the timeline, and I just wasn't able to pick up on it all the time. I think that really downed my experience the first time around. Whereas the second time, yeah, I'm still not able to connect with the characters, but I did know where the story was going, and I was able to pick up on the little details that I didn't the first time, and I was able to pay attention to the plot a lot easier. So overall, I did have a better experience the second time. All right, so now I'm gonna go into spoilers, and it's gonna be, I want to say, a short segment because I don't really have a lot of thoughts to go through, but I just want to make sure that if you have not read the book and you don't want it spoiled, now's the time to click off. All right, so first things first, obviously, I have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the burning house. I was shocked the first time that I read the book and learned that Johnny, Gant, and Mirren were dead, and they died in summer 15 due to a house fire that the three and Katie, so all four of them, started themselves. I was very surprised. And it was sad because it was like, wow, they died. Like it's you never really want to see characters die unless you don't like them. Like God forgive me, but Grandpa, he can kick the dust. Like I don't care about him, and he's not generally a good person. So if he had died, I mean, it was time, you know. But the three kids dying, I say kids, but they were teenagers. Her two cousins and the best and her boyfriend dying, that was sad in itself because they had a lot to live for, and the fact that they started the fire themselves, like that is rough. So now knowing that this is the accident that she subconsciously blocked from remembering just made the story a lot more interesting because throughout the book, those characters, Johnny, Gat, and Mirren, are in the book throughout. Like we see them and she interacts with them in the past and also the present. So that's the twist. You don't see that they're dead because she's interacting with them. But what I noticed the second time around was the fact that those characters didn't interact with anyone else in the present time. Those characters didn't leave that house for most of the time. Yeah, here and there they'll go to the beach or they'll go somewhere with Katie, but for the most part, they're always at that house and they don't interact with anyone else. So that was like the biggest hint that they were ghosts. So to me, those were really nice, subtle hints and little details that I didn't notice the first time around, but now knowing that they were ghosts and that they were dead, that I was able to pick it up the second time and really pick up those details, and it just made the story a lot more interesting. And I did like it the second time around because of that. Also, the fact that the family themselves is now closer than ever because they had to grieve together. They had to grieve the loss of Johnny. They had to grieve the loss of Mirren, and they had to grieve the loss of Gat. Like they had to grieve, and they had so much loss that they essentially don't have the energy to really fight about the things anymore. And the grandpa, even though he didn't die, he's not mentally here anymore. Like that traumatized him in a way that he is just not mentally here anymore. And I love that. Like he deserved that. I'm not gonna lie, he deserved that. But the fact that the family is now closer because of that incident is such a tragic outcome because the whole point of the kids wanting to burn down that house was because they wanted the family to stop fighting. They wanted the family to stop arguing about those little things. And at the end, they did stop, but it cost them the life of those kids. And again, first time that I read it, I remember that they had died, but I didn't remember why they wanted to burn the house down. They were just doing it, and I didn't pick up on things the first time around. But the second time around, I did, and I did appreciate the fact that it does have that tragic outcome that is very connected with the first two sections of the book. And so the last thing, I also did like that the subconscious reasoning for why she, throughout the book, was giving away her possessions and essentially not wanting to be present in a sense was the fact that she felt that guilt from that accident. Even though she couldn't remember it, she felt so guilty that subconsciously, again, she wasn't allowing herself to remember the accident. She wasn't allowing herself to really grieve and process what had happened. So she's blocking it out, but the feeling of guilt is still there. And the fact that in that scenario that happened, in that accident, she is the only one that was left alive, she felt a lot of guilt. And I don't think that consciously she felt worthy again of being alive. Not that she wanted to end her life, but she just didn't feel worthy of being alive. She didn't feel worthy of being present. So she was blocking everything out. and she was subconsciously again just giving the things away because she didn't feel like she needed them. She didn't feel like she deserved to have them when other people deserve to have them. So I thought that was a really good revelation. The fact that it's all subconscious guilt. She's blocking it out and she's making herself feel that way. And at the end, when she finally realizes what happened, when she finally comes in terms with it, she is able to now take in possession. She feels, I don't know if worthy is the right word, but she doesn't feel the guilt of being alive anymore. She knows about the past, but she is now able to live in the present and she's able to really focus on what her future will be. So I really like that aspect that it was a lot of her subconscious that was blocking it, and a lot of guilt that she felt. All right, so I think that's it that I have for this book. I, again, enjoyed it more this second time. I will rate it 4 stars. I do still, again, have problems with not being able to connect with characters. I'm not able to really have a personal stake and feel emotionally invested. But I think that overall, it is an interesting story. And I don't know how anyone else viewed it the first time that they read it, but I enjoyed it more the second time that I read it because, again, first time I just thought it was boring. But the second time it did have more nuance, and I was able to enjoy the story for what it was. So I'd rate it 4 stars. It's one that I would recommend if you're interested in reading. But yeah, I think that's it. So if you like this video, go ahead and leave a like. If you want to see more of my future videos, go ahead and subscribe. If you have read this book and you want to share what your own thoughts are, go ahead and leave a comment. I'm very interested in seeing how other people thought that the book went. I know that I didn't talk a lot about Johnny, I didn't talk a lot about Miriam, I didn't talk a lot about Gat, but I wasn't really connected with them, so I don't really have much to say. But if you do have something to say, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Yeah, thanks for watching.